Hey everyone, Fox from Fox Kit WoodWorks and Fox Den Videos. Just going to be doing a DIY, or we'll say informational video on how to engrave slate coasters. Now, as you can see here, I've already started the process and I have a certain process. So I'm going to work my way through my process of when I'm doing coasters for sale. This is not the end all be all way. I've learned a lot of things from videos online. Also, there's plenty of other people out there that can show you other ways. So this is just the process that I do. But before we get into more of the coasters, let me go ahead and say thank you all for liking and subscribing on this channel. And if you haven't, go ahead, please hit that like, subscribe, and notification button and join us along my adventure with my business, Fox Kit WoodWorks. So anyways, going back to the coasters. Typically, I source my coasters off of Amazon. If you can find someone that actually has these coasters for you, or these 4x4 slate pieces cut, preferably with the rubber feet on them, it makes it a lot faster on the process. Find it for your best price wherever you can. My next step when I get them in after I order them is I actually open up every single one, and they come in these like 5 packs with plastic, and I kind of have a grading system, and I'll show you how it works for me. If the coaster is very smooth and flat or pretty uniform with no chunks of pyrite, things like that in it, then it's my grade A, which is this section right here. If it has a little bit of pyrite, a little deformity, but still usable, it goes into my grade B, because I might be able to sand a little bit out or just double check it and go, you know what, it'll be usable. And then if it's really messed up and has a lot of issues with it, it goes to my C pile. And these are the ones that I save for later to sand down completely flat and smooth for more fine detailed projects. So for instance, out of this pack, I have an A, that's like a B because it's usable. It's uniformly bumpy over the top, but no big chips out of it. Another A and another A. That's a pretty good pack. And I do that through my entire ordering process, or I should say my entire process. And I will have them set out. And then once I get them all into their slotted groups and figured out which ones are engravable, then I'll move on to my next step, which is going to be cleaning them. Okay, so I've got them all sorted, and as you can see here, here are all the ones that are good. I actually have about 210, 219, somewhere in there, that are good to use for engraving. The rest over here, some of them might be okay to do an engraving on. They're kind of even, but if their bumps are just a little bit too much, or there's like a high spot, or some extra pyrite, or really, really rough, I don't use those. I save those to eventually be sanded down with all the pieces that are, test slate pieces or ones that got messed up. One of the nice things with slate is you can sand it down nice and smooth, and it does a really good job at then being used for high detailed work. And the next step that you're going to have to do is clean them. Now, the best way that I've found to clean them, and from watching other videos, is just using your isopropyl alcohol. So just ISP alcohol, or ISA, whatever it is. Acronyms not catching me right now. And a brush. Now, typically, I'll usually have a little bit firmer brush, but I've learned to start going to this more softer haired brush from like a shoe shining kit, because what you're trying to do is get those bigger chunks that are already kind of broken up on the surface and any of the little fine dust out of the way. And the way I end up doing this is I actually take this table and I lay them out as close together as possible. And I have a spray bottle filled with that alcohol, and I just spray it down. When it comes to the alcohol, though, you want to make sure that it is like the 99%, 98%, the real stuff, not the stuff that's diluted. So, time to get to cleaning. All right, and as you can see here, I got everything laid out, and there's a reason why I'm laying it out this way, and I'm going to go into all that. First of all, I was able to get a total of 117 coasters on this. And the reason why I have it laid out this specific way is I want a little bit of space between each coaster. I don't want them touching each other for a few reasons. Number one, when I come around and I spray it and I start giving it the scrub with the brush or the wipe down, I want those little chips and flakes to be able to go somewhere, because what I'm going to do is come back with a blower and at a very low setting so these don't flip off, just get all the dust out of it as I can. Number two, typically what I do, once these are cleaned and dry, instead of setting them off to the side where they're going to get dirty again, or bringing in more and switching them out, I actually treat these ones. So what I have been using, and I'm actually going to do a test to see which one I like better, is just the Rust-Oleum lacquer. I've really liked the Ultra Smooth Shine one in the green can a lot. However, this Automotive Nano one, it costs a little bit more, but it gives it a really, really high gloss. So I'm going to kind of test them to see which of the two I like better and decide if there's going to be a premium product versus a normal product, or if this one just stays for wood products. But when I come and I spray these, I'm going to spray them from the front, the sides, and the opposite side. And I want to be able to get that spray into these edges. And if I was to put them where they were touching each other, there's no way that I would actually be able to get in there. One last tidbit of advice I'll give you when we get over to the laser engraving, once these are lacquered and dried, is if you look at them, they're going to be different thicknesses. So on average, there's about a 2 to 5 millimeter difference in thickness. What I have come to find out is I will take a few samples. I'll figure out one like this right here I can see is really thin, while this one's really thick. And I will actually measure their thickness. And when I go to the laser engraver, I'll make that adjustment somewhere where it's in the middle. Because what I've noticed on laser engraving, a 2 to 3 millimeter difference doesn't throw off the engraving detail too much, but the further away you get, either the more distorted or deeper it gets. So next will be lacquering, or excuse me, cleaning and lacquering. You have two different ways to be able to work on slate. One is natural. Now, the nice thing about natural is all you got to do is clean it, put it in the engraver, and engrave it. The whole thing then ends up becoming or staying porous so that it can actually take the sweating of glass and absorb that water and not let it run off to the sides, which is a nice benefit, especially if you're using it someplace that you're going to be using them on nice wooden tops. However, when you treat it like with lacquer, it makes it have that wet look, and when you engrave it, the lighter parts come through and it gives you a much more defined pop on things, and it looks just a lot sharper. However, since you've now treated it and it's no longer porous on the surface where the lacquer is, it's gonna let the water beat up there and potentially sweat off the edges. But once you engrave it, now you have a porous area on it. So a lot of times the images that I've been doing have been, bigger centerpieces, typically 3 inches by 3 inches, and most of that majority, is decently filled up. I'm not really worried about the water seeping off because now once you've removed that lacquer, it's back to being porous again. If you really wanted to maybe make it a selling point, you could even make a frame of a square around whatever the centerpiece is, and that could kind of be like your water retention zone, where if the water does end up, you know, sweating down and over and becoming a glob as it slides down the side, it'll hit that and get absorbed. So, okay, let's see if I can get that a little more out of the way. Okay, now that we are done giving it the clean, we're going to let it dry. Luckily out here, it's about 90 something degrees, 98 degrees. So these dry really quick. But before you apply your lacquer, you want to make sure that these are very, very dry. Otherwise, you might get some cloudiness to it. In the time lapse, you might have seen me stop. And in fact, I'm going to change this one out. That one's actually drying okay. It's just a wet spot. No, I'll just change it out. One of the things, the reason why you want to go through and clean them is because as you clean these, you're going to be able to see that there's more imperfections on some of them than others once you get all the dust off. And when you have them laid out on a table like this, you're really able to see, is there a scratch that can be worked with or not? Is there defects that all of a sudden came up? And really that's what we're trying to do. Next, what I'm going to go ahead and do is get my blower and just give these a nice blow off, get all the dust and everything else, any dog hairs, things like that off of it. And then we'll go into lacquering. Okay, a little creator magic. I got it all blown off and cleaned. I'm feeling pretty good about the work surface. There's not too much like little debris, because when we come back with the lacquer, we don't want to put the lacquer down and then have stuff getting stuck to it, because then we're just going to have to sand it, clean it, whatever, and redo it. Now, if you have a big enough shop or maybe a tent or a tarp, this would be a good time to maybe enclose the working area you're in, so that way you don't have bugs and pollen and whatnot falling on it. I haven't had any issues out here in the front or the side. And if I do, nice thing with lacquer, a lot of times you can just hit it with the lacquer. It'll loosen it up, wipe it off, and then hit it one more time, and you're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my can of lacquer out. In fact, I have one already opened here. Give it a good shake. And I'm literally going to work down each row side to side from one side, and I'm just going to rotate and do the same thing all the way around until I hit all 4 sides. And if you can see, I'm holding it about 6 to 8 inches back, moving at a pretty quick pace because I would rather do these twice than to get too much on it and, you know, pull it up where you're going to have to sand it out or clean it up. And occasionally when you're spraying, because of just it being a spray can, you will get like a piece of slate or dust to pop out. If you can get that out of the way, that's kind of the best thing to do. And that'll stop it from maybe attaching to a piece that you've already sprayed. And then what I usually finally do on the last spray is I go over the center of everything just to make sure it's nice and evened up. And at that point, we're ready to let it sit and dry. Now, one thing with lacquer is it likes kind of moderate temperature, or at least humidity and stuff like that, because that can cause the cloudiness or the rosing, as they call it. And what I like to do is try to do it more either in the beginning of the day or the end of the day when the temperature started to cool off a little bit. Humidity's not too high. And if you can find an area that has a nice breeze, that really seems to help it dry faster and clearer. And just let it be out in the open and dry off that way. Also, this stuff, you want to work on it outside, probably should wear a mask even though, because you will get the fumes off of it, especially when you're spraying a whole can basically on this stuff. But it does go quite a good distance. This can was only about half full. Like I said, this is like 117, I think, coasters, and it will most likely cover it all and let me do all my touch up for it. And I've really found that working at like a faster speed, especially on slate, even wood a lot of the time, like that piece got to touching, I'll just move it off. Really just kind of gets a nice light coat on it. And with this slate, you really don't need 2 coats. If you really wanted to gloss it up, you could always do a second finishing coat. But honestly, 1 coat a lot of the time really just gets the job done well. Also, it is very, very fast drying. Typically, I'll let it sit for at least a half hour, but a lot of times I've come back within 5 or 10 minutes and it's dry enough to touch and work with. And then what you want to do is just kind of walk around your table, take a look and see if there's any spots that look uneven or not dry. Like this side looks like it's drier, but then when I switch to the other side, some of them are not. There's a few like right here and right down this row that could use a little extra. So anyways, we're going to let these dry, and then next we're going to shift over to the computer and show you how I use XCS and do my engraving.